Friends, welcome to this new episode. Today we have two extremely interesting stories. The first happened in a school in the city of Bariloche, and the second occurred in a house where a curious episode took place, where two older adults were involved. As always, I would like you to tell me at the end what you think about these two cases that we are going to learn about today. And taking advantage of the occasion, because many of you don't know, tomorrow, March 2nd, we will have a new case on my channel. Who was it? So, I invite you to stop by, subscribe of course, and tomorrow at 7:30 in the evening, get to know a truly unmissable case. As always, send me your experience to the WhatsApp number on the screen now. Any quantity or duration of audios is fine. And you can add photos, videos, or any material that you think is appropriate to make your story as complete as possible. Then I review everything you send, and any doubts I will be contacting you. Friends, now we begin. As of today, I am retired, but until 2 years ago I was working as a full-time director of a primary school in San Carlos de Bariloche, province of Rio Negro, Argentina, where a series of paranormal events occurred that I will never forget. I took up my post in the year 2012, living in an official house that was located on the school institution's premises, which on other occasions was given to janitors, deputy directors, and directors to inhabit while they found a rental in the area. In 2012, I occupied it with my two young sons, 19 and 21 years old, and also with my husband. We never imagined experiencing something like that in that place. One Saturday morning, I went to school to take some pending work to do at home. And since the neighborhood is quite complex, I locked the entrance door and set out to check emails on the computer I had in the office. It should be noted that I closed the office door without locking it, and I started gathering the documentation I needed to finish at home the tasks that were still pending. While I was doing this task, something happened. Someone knocked on the door and I heard them say, "Good day." At the same moment, I got up without thinking about anything at all. I opened the door, but I found myself completely alone. And here is a very important detail to keep in mind. Let's remember that the school door, the main entrance, was locked and there was no other entrance enabled. So what happened? Another point is that I didn't recognize the voice of this man who greeted me. I never knew who he was. The school has a second floor, so I went there to check all the classrooms. I did the same with the other sector, the kitchen, the courtyard, the bathrooms, but indeed I didn't find anyone. Quite confused by what happened, I took my things, locked up and ran home, which is, as I said before, on the same property, about 20 meters or so from the school building. When I arrived, my husband asked if something happened to me, because he noticed my pale, scared face. I told him what happened. Without hesitation, he left to check the school, but found no one, just like me. What had happened was inexplicable, because the door was closed, no window had been forced, the school was basically as it always was. And this remained there, as a strange event that we couldn't explain, but something else happened. On another occasion, my children, as we still didn't have internet services, would sit with their computers on the steps at the entrance to the school in order to use the Wi-Fi and thus finish, or connect with some friends and look at different things on the internet. They practically went every day, around 7 in the evening, and stayed until 9 when I called them for dinner. And one of these many nights, there was no need for me to go look for him or call him. They came home running very scared, and I emphasize that they are not little. They were 19 and 21 years old at that time. When I asked them what had happened, they told me that the school was haunted, that the noises they heard were not normal, and that night it was so much that they couldn't stand the fear and the ugly feeling of being there at the door, so close to where everything was happening. I asked them why they said this, and I clarified that I had never told them about what had happened to me in the office. And they told me that while they were in complete silence, from one second to the next they began to hear as if someone was sweeping inside one of the classrooms on the first floor. And while they were listening to this, which seemed quite normal because it had happened on other occasions, other much more disturbing noises began to join in. They heard tables being moved, chairs falling on their own, bangs but not in just one classroom. These noises seemed to have taken over the entire school in just 1 second. And the worst part was what they felt. It scared them so much that they ran back home. At the moment, I thought some janitor had entered without permission, even though it wasn't his place. Or why not? Some crook had entered the building to steal or simply to break things. Something regrettable, but quite common. So I told my husband, and together with him and my children we entered and started to check. Indeed, there was no one in the school. We checked every corner and nothing. This happened in January of 2012. Therefore, there were no students or support staff. The janitors, since we were on vacation. But in February, when we started the work prior to classes, I told one of the oldest janitors at the institution. These events experienced by me and my children. She told me that at the school, a few years ago, there was a janitor who at the time lived in the same house that I currently inhabited with my family. But shortly after retiring, he passed away. And that many, in the early hours of the morning or at the end of the night shift classes, hear movements in the classrooms as if someone were arranging and cleaning them. That's why they think his soul is still fulfilling those tasks that he enjoyed so much in life. On the other hand, he told me that 2 students from the school, for reasons that are not relevant to the case, had died within the institution. One of them in the schoolyard during school hours. And that, according to what was said, their souls could not leave the school because they were seen, felt, and even heard. Frankly, if they had told me this without having personally had the experiences that I lived or those that my children lived, I would not have believed it for anything in the world. So today I have nothing more to say than we are not alone. My name is Fabiola, and I want to tell you what happened to me in a house where I worked. I was a domestic worker and, among various tasks I performed, I took care of 2 elderly people. There is a detail to mention that is very important to understand what happened. The lady of the house was bedridden. She had no chance of moving, for various reasons that make no sense to detail. But on the other hand, her husband did wander, and not only that, he drank quite a lot of alcohol. And their daughters warned me on several occasions to be careful, because their dad used to sneak out of the house when least expected. And it was necessary to scold him. Essentially, get his attention so he doesn't repeat it. Most of all, because he struggled to move around and always feared falling in the street. So, 2 weeks after starting work, something happened that really left me speechless and that I never imagined experiencing. I was cleaning the dining room. It was around 9 in the morning, and I see this man walking down the outside hallway. He was leaving. The truth is, I didn't feel like arguing or scolding him because no matter what I tried, he was going to leave anyway. And I let him go for a walk. Of course, he had done it many times before. His daughters even knew it, and they knew perfectly well that it was impossible to hold him back because of his character. So the idea was to scold him a bit when he came back. Minutes later, he was cooking lunch in the kitchen and something very particular happened.
This man left for all this about an hour past, but here I go to the part that I explained to you. This house has 2 entrances. It has its main entrance and it has like an extra gate on one side. That side has a hallway that takes you to the back of the house. This man would always have to enter through the other gate, through the gate that has the hallway that takes you to the back of the house. Because the daughters had already warned me that he always went in there to make less noise. Well, the thing happened that the gentleman returned, supposedly. According to me, he returned. I felt he was walking I felt the gate creaked as it was a house where the grandparents lived in silence. I felt that he was walking, supposedly from the entrance of the gate, and I felt like the gate opened. Supposedly the gate opened. I mean, the noise was heard, and I felt that he was walking from the gate. Let's say he was coming like this. He tended to walk. He dragged his feet as he walked, hunched over despite being an adult man.
One detail is that in the kitchen of this house there was a window that just faced this hallway where the man went, and there was also another one facing the back of the lot. While I continued cooking, I could hear this man dragging his feet, entering the house at all times. The noise was not new, you can imagine. I already knew it, and it was unmistakable. At that moment, I look out the hallway window, and indeed he was passing very slowly in the direction towards the back, where he would enter the kitchen. I could see him more or less up to his waist, so I greeted him with a good day. His lack of listening or responding to me was not news, so it was unsurprising. I lost sight of him and I was looking at the other window, the one that overlooks the back of the house and where he would have to pass before entering through the door. At that moment, I feel that the steps stop and there was silence. I called him, and since I didn't hear anything, I went out because I was scared, maybe. He had fallen in a matter of seconds. Can you imagine? When I went out, the man was not there. There was absolutely no one in the back, no one in the hallway, not even in the kitchen. I was alone.
There was no one, absolutely no one. But I swear to you that I saw someone cross, there a person crossed, and in theory I had seen him, in theory it was him, it was the man of the house. I even went to the back of the house because they had like a kind of a grill. I looked for him, I went out to the sidewalk, there was no one, I looked for him. In the rooms of the house, that man was not there, that man appeared, for example, all this at 9:30, 10 in the morning, this man only appeared at 12 noon. I mean, who I saw, who it was that crossed, I don't know. I could never figure out who it was that crossed through the window, that I saw him, and that I didn't find him in the yard. I never really knew who the person who crossed was, or entity, or whoever it was.
A colorful fact that I knew, after telling this to her daughters, I found out that their father, when he built the house, in those times, raised it entirely with his hands. They had found buried dolls in different sectors of the lot, cloth dolls that were thrown in the trash. But the energy they were channeling or storing surely remained in the house. And apparently, these paranormal events were very sporadic, but they had always happened and everyone had suffered similar issues. Anyway, I imagine what happened to me was witnessing a bilocation event where I saw this man before he returned to his home. Or I also think they call it doppelganger. It would be very good for me if someone who knows about this could shed a little more light on this matter, which still has me confused today.
In that house I have always felt when I entered. They were talking to me while the grandparents slept. In the end, we put a padlock on the gate to prevent the gentleman from escaping. Or the ladies who lived there always said they heard whistling from the back, and in the two houses at the back no one lives and no one lives there. And every December 24th, you can smell men's perfume inside the house. And in that house, all women live because they are single and you can smell men's perfume. I don't know.